We said that you know, perhaps Tice was the most dominant. Kolento is in the argument for that spot. Straightforward. He's actually trimmed a copy of Brawl. He's only going with 1 Omega Devastator and included Super Collider. Boils down to what actually ends up panning out. If you know, we saw it from Viper. In our opinion, he made a mistake of not clearing up the Harrison Jones. That snowballed the game. One small step.
And that's how it is against this mage deck, is if you leave 1 minion on board for too long, you miss one answer, they will just absolutely run you over.
So, as Bozzzton, what do you think you're looking for in the opening hands here? You know, the early stages. He's got a couple copies of Shield Slam. The Warpath, maybe not so much, but the Shield Slams, whoo! Those are nice.
Yeah, they are absolutely lovely, in addition with the Eternium Rover, perhaps, to get a little bit of extra armor, just in order to kill off that first Mountain Giant, or just first real threat, be it Mountain Giant or Sea Giant. You just want to kill it off before the Conjurer's Call can come down.
What to do? What to do?
And on Kolento's side, you know, I imagine there's a lot of cards that are actually pretty decent draws for him, but at the same time, there's a lot of draws that are looking like they are pretty miserable draws for him.
Yeah, taking a look down the deck list, the cards he actually really wants to see, I'm thinking Arcane Intellect, Banana Buffoon to fill up the hand, Mana Cyclone or Stargazer Luna. Basically anything to fill up his hand to get that Giant down as soon as possible.
Ooh, that's one of the worst ones.
Yeah, you don't love to see that.
That's a card that's so good versus decks that want to get on board with a bunch of little stuff, and so bad against decks that just don't really care about their minions, where their minions are just more expendable.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been, like, imagine the last meta, in, like, when there was all the odd paladins and the spring paws knocking about from the mid-range hunters. Would have been crazy. I
think that probably was one of the things Kolento was thinking about, where he's like, you know, I'm going to have, like, a dead card in this slot anyway, in a matchup. Why not dedicate it to being super strong in the position I want it to?
Right, yeah.
Like, if you think about its combination with, like, you know, the Mana Cyclone turns with Sorcerer's Apprentice, I feel like Dart Frog fits right into that game plan.
I mean, it's why players have been putting cards in their deck that benefit off of playing many spells in the same turn, be it the Vex Crow, the Questing Adventurer, or now the Magic Dart Frog from Kolento as well.
Wow, Bozzzton going to expend Warpath here. Kill off Sorcerer's Apprentice. I don't blame him for this.
Yeah.
You know, I was considering the Shield Slam with the coin. I think that this is way more efficient, where Warpath is just such a less valuable card in the matchup.
I completely agree. I mean, you made the reaction when we saw his starting hand, right? Like, the Warpath, just don't really need it in this matchup all too often. It's not big enough to kill off the Conjurer's Calling stuff.
That's a trick for you. Triplet spell. When you got all 3 of them. Get it, because twin is 2. Triplet is 3.
Right. Oh, so instead of twin spells, it's triplet spells.
Yeah. That's what I was going.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and I fully agree with you. I think for Bozzzton, the main thing about killing off that Sorcerer's Apprentice right at the start wasn't even that he was afraid of the mana reduction on the spells. It was the chipping of his armor total that was really scary, because he needs that up to 8 as soon as he possibly can to get those shield slams on the Giant.
And that's really a big question for me now, as well, is Bozzzton has the opportunity to wrench Caliber here, but I actually feel like the armor ups are meaningful in this situation. Like, your opponent's not really doing anything.
What now?
So how does it actually discreetly break down? If you go up to 5 this turn, your opponent will not be able to Giant next turn. Then you go up to 6, and then even if they ping your face, you're still getting up to 8, I think, if you armor this turn.
5 to 4 to 6 to 5 to 7.
That's if he pings face both turns, though, over the next couple turns. But I guess Bozzzton is thinking, if he is going to do that.
Looking at the main deck from Kolento, there is no weapon removal. No Harrison Jones, no Acidic Swamp Oozes. So he does not have a way to actually kill a weapon. And actually, looking at his secondary and tertiary decks, there is 1 copy of Harrison Jones that can fight weapons. That's it. The rest of it's like freezy stuff.
Really interesting spot now for Kolento, where he could actually play the Giant now in this position with the elemental evocation into Mountain Giant as the kind of the thinking man's coin Mountain Giant.
Thinking man's coin Mountain Giant.
Okay, well, as in the not joke play of coin Mountain Giant. But I think I actually like his slightly more conservative line here, where, yes, you could get an 8/8 down on board, but with 2 Conjurer's Callings in hand, you really want to have the stuff that you can actually cast those spells on, which comes almost exclusively in this deck in the form of Mountain Giant. So you really want to be going on the same turn, Giant Conjurers.
Yeah, you're kind of seeing the game plan come together, where Kolento is just sacrificing life total in order to build to the Mountain Giant point. You know, this is why the Banana Buffoons, the Arcane Intellects, they're important cards to the deck, is they help accelerate these styles of turns, where you get out a Mountain Giant and Conjurer's Calling immediately on turn 6.
One thing I actually find very interesting about Kolento's line of play is the double ping on the Clockwork Goblin, because we've been talking a lot about the importance of getting that armor total up high. And if Kolento had gone for double ping on the face here, he might have been in a position where these shield slams were just that little bit less effective and wouldn't be able to kill off a giant.
Yeah, I think the nod is to life total. You know, he knows he's not going to be fighting for board here, so he's going to have to do something, or he's just going to die.
That's a good point. Yeah, this is not Control Warrior. This is Bomb Warrior. They just kill you a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, Wrench Caliber's already equipped. You have one bomb in your deck, and you know, the longer this game goes, the more likely it is you draw those. And talking about health restore, there is no Ziliax in the main deck for Kolento.
To quote the great Nathan Zamora, that's a true story.
That seems crazy to me.
To not be playing Ziliax.
Yeah. Like, maybe you forgot, it's Ziliax.
I mean, it's not unheard of. There are quite a few players who are doing that. I agree it's a good inclusion in the deck.
Dummies.
Yeah.
That was a high five, in case you were wondering. I didn't get slapped.
Dunking. Yeah. How dare you insult the player base? Whoosh. As we see here, still Kolento taking this incredibly slow line of play.
I like it, though.
I also like it. I think if he's committed to a game plan of not playing the Giant on turn 5, you don't want to play it on turn 6 when you still can't conjure as it.
Defend the gates!
Bozzzton gonna develop a 2/5. And start swinging away. There are no copies of the Elic. Augmented Elic in Bozzzton's main deck, and so the weapon was purely for tempo, and now Kolento's going to start unleashing some power here. But this is exactly what you were talking about as well, without chipping away armor. Now Bozzzton has the armor up into 2 shield slams and gets to keep chipping away, and second Wrench Caliber drawing. That's a big deal.
This is really interesting for Bozzzton, because obviously the first thing you see on this turn is just armor up, double shield slam, deals with the board. The Mountain Giant is gone, and he needs to find something else to put the second half of the Conjurer's Call on. He could, however, go Militia Commander and swing in addition to the shield slam first as well. But that churns through pretty much all his armor total, rendering the second shield slam much less effective.
Yeah, I think it's just double shield slam.
Okay.
And the reason why is because, you know, again, once your armor's shredded, you don't have access to that anymore.
Yeah, for the next couple turns, it's effectively dead.
So Bozzzton has aggressive potential and not really any answers. No Super Collider, no Brawl.
Yeah.
He will be at the mercy of how this pans out for Kolento. And Kolento, you know, still looking for those Grave Harbors in that spot. If he manages to find just 2 more Mountain Giants from the Conjurer's Calling, I think he could be in trouble.
Yeah, things do start to get a little bit scary. I'll agree with you there. Obviously, especially if we see from Bozzzton Blast Master Boom at any point to deliver that extra damage. Now, Kolento has a somewhat more flexible turn due to the elemental evocation in his hand. If he wanted to reduce the cost of the Giant by 1, he could then go double Ray of Frost in order to get 2 freezes and absolutely mitigate all damage to his face.
I'm curious if he is going to end up on a Mana Cyclone turn here. I would... Oh my goodness, 2 more Grave Horrors.
Yeah, he's very happy to see that.
That's 25% chance to have 2 of a particular minion come out.
That's a true story.
Because there's only 2 different options.
Yes.
So both times got the major defensive overhaul. I think that Bozzzton would have probably been on shield slams regardless last turn.
Oh, regardless if they were Grave Horrors?
Yes.
Yes, I agree. I fully agree.
And for Kolento, he says that's good enough. And for Bozzzton, it's looking grim.
Yeah. this is where it all starts to fall apart. This is also, it's worth saying, a direct result of Kolento's style of play here, where he was super conservative, kept the Giants in hand until he could guarantee the Conjurers falling on them. Because if he'd just thrown them out one by one, hoping they stick, double shield slam would have just pretty much locked him out of the game here. Really nice line.
However, at 16 as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So it takes 4 bombos in a row to kill him. Not 3, 4. That 16 is actually like...
It's huge breakpoint. However, there are 4 bombs in the deck now, right? And it's going to be a 5th once the Wrench Caliber swings for a 2nd time as well. So it is getting a little bit scary.
The Dart Frog! It's time!
Lick 'em, boys.
Oh my god, is that where Lick'em's made after? Is the Dart Frog? The art?
I don't think so. I think it's just a general...
It's fun to
frog.
think about.
It's great fun to think about. It's kind of a dark world then for Magic Dark Frog to live in, where his brethren are being made into staffs and literally being hit into other people.
2 Mountain Giants picked up on this one.
It's not terrible. Book of Spectres can just get you a little bit more juice later on.
Yeah, try to kill the 2-2.
Yep.
Connects, Dart Frog. Activates on nothing, and now Bozzzton is officially at the mercy of the gods.
And Kolento is not going to slow down. Like, he doesn't have to overdevelop into a brawl, but even if some removal were to come down here from Bozzzton in the form of Super Collider or Brawl primarily, or pretty much exclusively, Kolento's still got the refill.
Yeah, I'm looking at Bozzzton's position right now, and there's 2 ways that he wins. Number 1, Kolento draws a heap of bombs, or number 2, Bozzzton basically picks which card he needs from his deck and plays accordingly. And so with that, I'm curious if you Warpath to set up a 2nd Warpath.
What now?
Or if you do nothing and hope to find Brawl.
Those are both interesting lines. Because if you start, say you Warpath 3 times on this turn, and then Hero Power, Kolento, I think, will be making... Oh, no, wait, he knows that there's only 1 Warpath in hand, because the first one was used early on. I was going to say, does he know that the second one's there?
Oh, you're right.
It was used on the...
So you just can't Warpath do that.
Warpath would never get there.
You mitigate the 3 immediate damage.
Yes.
Of those small minions, but now this mitigates the effectiveness of your Brawl.
And also, I mean, you swing face and then pray that you get the 3 weapons, the 3 bombs that come out.
Oh, he's just going to swing for the Mountain Giant. So once again, that breakpoint actually makes a difference. Kolento, I mean, the way that Kolento dies is just 4 bombs in a row, and that is a very low chance.
It's staggering.
Unless he decides he wants to cast Book of Spectres.
Yeah. Fair point.
Or Arcane Intellect.
Which I learned does actually activate the bombs. I wasn't sure if it would discard the bombs because it's a spell. It does activate and then draw another. I had that.
Cast Winddrawn. It's very true.
Yeah.
As to quote the great Nathan Zamora, that's a true story. To quote Darroch Brown, quoting Nathan Zamora, that's a true story. He's gonna Arcane Int. No. No. Ah!
No. You never die here. The odds are astronomical.
Well, you might as well play the Luna then as well.
Luna, yeah.
Rip the Frostbolt face. Let's go. Don't do that.
That was a joke, Kolento. Yeah, you just keep developing it.
Frostbolt does play around Super Collider in this spot as well.
Oh, very good point, yeah. I think I like that. If you're not going to spend your mana on anything else.
Ah, and so Kolento's considering what Brawl actually looks like against him. His plan, I think, was to Conjurer's Calling, Frostbolt, and then Mana Cyclone, and is now considering what a top-decked Brawl from Bozzzton looks like. It's very clear that Bozzzton does not have a Brawl.
Yes.
And so he adds the Banana Buffoon to hedge against the Brawl, so that if he gets Brawled in this spot, he has bananas to add to the Mana Cyclone. And there's no use here found for Bozzzton.
Yeah, none of these are going to do it. The Rusty Recycler is obviously a pretty big roadblock that could block 8 and heal for 2.
Yeah, so
Still just dead, though.
Yeah.
Block 7, sorry, and heal for 2.
Kolento with the Frostbolt and the bananas in hand actually pushes through Rusty Recycler.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he was thinking about.
All the way back on turn 1, he's thinking, you know, play the Sorcerer's Apprentice here, just in case he gets the Rusty Recycler.
I'm going to need to have extended this second Warpath out there just in case they get the Rusty Recycler. Yeah, the survival turn here for Bozzzton is ugly. Looking at Rusty Recycler, Weapons Project, Eternium Rover. This does not get it done, I don't believe. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Counting 16 damage over on Kolento's side.
That means we're on the bomb plan, which has not come to fruition.
But if it did there, I would have greatly criticized the Arcane Intellect.
Okay, fair enough. But I think obviously playing the Arcane Intellect there had its very, very slight downsides. I think overall it was the way to go.
He even found more damage.
For Bozzzton, however...
Kolento's a genius. Go on,
I agree. Do you think for Bozzzton there, he could have anticipated that the turn after he went Warpath, clear the Giant, could have been as bad as this, and therefore should he have just swung face with the Wrench Caliber and just pray that he draws 3 bombs?
See, so that's a situation. I guess
Wrong.
I'm the one who's out of place because I'm doing the European Hearthstone Grandmasters here.
Exactly. So everyone in chat, let's collectively laugh in English. Admirable.
Apologies, old chaps. Integral it is.
Integral to the overall strategy.
You just immediately convert over. I just went the other way.
Yeah, I know.
So you're just trying to do the opposite of me.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think Boston's going to win this game.
I agree. I think it's a very favored matchup. The obviously, every card that Kolento has put in makes the matchup better against Warrior. This is very clearly a tertiary deck tailored specifically to counter Warrior. But even then, double Big Game Hunters, double Super Collider, double Brawl, and an Execute. Nothing is sticking on this board.
Well, we're running it back on game number 1 here with the old Eternium Rover versus Sorcerer's Apprentice, and I can tell you who wins.
Because that's how Hearthstone works. As long as they look vaguely similar turn 1 or 2, just cruise right through.
I meant in the minion battle.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, not the overall.
Right, sorry. My mistake.
It wasn't a mistake. It was poor messaging by me. I apologize.
Ambiguity is the enemy of a good broadcast, as I always say.
Runs out on me.
Infinite magic tricks. Stick that with your Dark Frog. You just keep... That's a board clear right there.
Every time.
That's a turn 4 Flame Strike. Icicle. I'm really surprised, but I thought he was going to take Research Project.
I was very tempted by the Research Project as well. Like, obviously... there's obvious inherent downside in that card, in that you get your opponent closer to their answers. Your minions are less likely to stick in play. And I guess maybe this is showing Kolento's reasoning, is he doesn't need to play quickly in this matchup. He's coming to the conclusion that if they just play out slowly, just draw their decks naturally, he will have enough threats to outlast the Warrior.
And that seems to be Kolento in a nutshell, I think, over the years, is that he's been a very patient player.
Yeah.
Pretty much throughout, and he's going to protect this Sorcerer's Apprentice with the Ray of Frost Icicle combo. Icicle, if you're unfamiliar with that card, it was added to the Classic set fairly recently because of the Hall of Fame inclusions, taking out some of the Mage cards.
And I always get it confused with Snap Freeze. I always think they work the other way around. That's on me for being an idiot, not on Hearthstone. Splitting Image is actually pretty interesting, because if you can exhaust the Shield Slams and the Execute, having just like Antonidas in play when you have a Splitting Image maybe means that the only way they can kill it is rushing it down with Militia Commander and weapons. It's unlikely to come up, but it's something he has to consider, because it can be very powerful in this matchup if you can perfectly tailor the situation.
Yep, to me the most unsatisfying thing I've run into with Splitting Image is that it sometimes activates my opponent's Super Collider.
Does it work that way?
You attack, Splitting Image activates, Super Collider connects, the minions attack into each other.
I did not know that. That's pretty awful, actually, then.
It's sometimes okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I think Kolento here is thinking, yes, it could be good, but I want cards that are more usually that are decent a higher percentage of the time, rather than rarely very powerful.
Looking at Ray of Frost with Archmage Antonitis, I'm looking at Ray of Frost with Mana Cyclone.
Yeah.
Just way more uses that it has as being a double spell card than some fancy spitting images. Yeah, I said spitting, because that's what it could have been called, and they called it splitting, and I got.
Oh yeah, it could have been called that.
Because I thought
there's
it was
no
spitting.
joke in the card name.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a clever name. Clever name for a card.
They just got me good. I was upset. Admittedly, when I said I think Bozzzton's going to win this game, I did underestimate Kolento's hand.
As in, you think this hand is really good?
I think this hand is very good.
I think for the way this tertiary deck is built, this is pretty... I'd say this is under par for where he wants to be at this point.
I agree, and it's still very good.
Right, okay, okay.
So now
fair enough.
You kind of get where I'm coming from. You're picking up what I'm putting down.
Oh, I am indeed admirable. Yeah, I mean, like, early on, you kind of want the arcane intellects, I think, a little bit more, which is why we were both anticipating the research project, of course, just to speed up that draw and get him through to his bigger threats.
It does fuel your opponent at the same time, though.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you think about how powerful of a card Dr. Boom Mad Genius is in the matchup.
You don't want them to have that.
Yeah, it's like Dr. Boom Mad Genius for me in this matchup is, I think, one of the few matchups where I consider it like purely the value prospect being so important to that card. I actually feel like in most matchups, the value prospect of Dr. Boom isn't the major facet of it. I feel like it's the rush.
Oh, I agree.
I feel like in this matchup, it's quite the opposite. I feel like the value prospect is one of the major benefits of that card.
I don't think I actually agree with you. I think the fact that the rush in this matchup is so important because against Mage, you just want to clear off their stuff when they play it every single turn. That's how you beat this deck, because they can't do their disgusting combos with Khadgar and the Conjurer's Calling and all that nonsense. So being able to rush out your Omega Devastators, anything you discover off the Omega Assembly as well, I personally think is a little bit more valuable.
Okay. Interesting take on it. I mean, the rush is obviously valuable.
And the value is obviously valuable.
Hence the name.
Ah, I never got that before. There we go. This hand's starting to speed up a little bit now.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see, you know, how much Kolento wants to draw in this instance. You know, there is a lot of merit, I think, to getting, or attempting to rather, getting the bombs out of your deck.
Yeah.
Before your opponent actually finds Blastmaster Boom.
Yes.
Blastmaster Boom, of course, activated per each bomb in your opponent's deck.
And I'd be interested to see how many cards he tries to end up with in his hand at the end of this turn, given that he has the Astromancer in hand, which obviously goes summons a minion equal to your hand size, pulling mana cost to your hand size. And I think at the moment, with the way that the current top-end cards are shaping out, 9 mana is actually better than 8 mana, even though it was the other way around for a little while.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. 9 is just big.
Yeah, it's just huge.
You just want big stuff.
And you got like the Heroic Bartender on 8 mana now, Hyreek the Bat, a lot of underpar options.
Yeah. Bozzzton setting up for anticipating the need to use Super Collider on the following turn, so we'll swing the weapon.
My calculations are flawless.
Just big.
A little underwhelming, but still a very well-statted board for 7 mana.
Yeah, for me, it's the back end. I think that is super important against Warrior. It survives through Super Colliders, and it forces shield slams. Like, your opponent can't Warpath it. They're not going to, be able to just punch it down with their little minions. I feel like 5/8, even though I think it is below average, it's still very sizable for the position you're in.
Yeah, I think it's tough, because if your opponent wasn't running double Super Collider, that would be great, because if they didn't use shield slams or a brawl to deal with that, you have a 9-cost minion on board, you start just popping off with Conjurer's Callings.
So now, with the Mountain Giant drawn, Kolento's, I think, looking towards some sort of Harrison Jones turn, and then move into like Power Creations and nonsense until he can find, the Mountain Giant turns to get going.
So how do you find hand space, first of all? Because you...
Ray of Frost. You have a twin-spelled Ray of Frost on the far left.
Oh, is that untwin spelled? Okay, yeah. Okay, that's fine then.
Activated the Icicle with it early on.
Yeah, we're very happy with that then.
And so for Bozzzton, that ends up actually being quite an awkward turn because you're facing down a Harrison Jones, which I think is likely to find a banana on itself as well.
Yeah, I think basically just anything else that you can play that involves actually pushing stats onto the board on this turn, one of your power plays, is just far too weak to the Super Collider to really consider anything else.
Runs out on me.
Of course, there's the notion to overload that as well, though. You know, perhaps you front load it with the Mountain Giant, you have Harrison Jones to answer potentially the second Super Collider, or even just do this.
Okay, this is fine. As long as he plays the Harrison on this turn, I'm happy. This is definitely contradictory to how he was playing the first game, where he was only playing the Mountain Giant when it was Conjurer's Called on the same turn. He had to pair those together. But I think that's the difference that this tertiary deck allows him to play like, because he has so much value in his deck. He's allowed to just throw it out because he has so many targets for Conjurer's Calling that he would rather hit.
Makes sense to me.
I think I like this a lot, actually.
Ooh, that's a nice one for Bozzzton to come up. But Kolento's hand is gas.
This is huge. He really needs to think now about what cards does he want to save for Khadgar, because Khadgar Power of Creation is obviously very, very powerful, but so is Khadgar Conjurer's Calling.
5/6 or 6/5. I'm taking 5/6 personally.
It survives a 5 activations of Warpath, which is a pretty big consideration.
Back end, more important than front end. That's my opinion.
Okay, fair enough.
Kolento says more attack. Attack equals damage, damage equals good.
Yeah, it's the fact that it's going exactly into, if it was going into turn 10 from his opponent, I think he would definitely agree with you that you go for the 5/6 over the 6/5. But because it's just 1 mana short of that Warpath board clear, I think, like you said, just wants to smack.
And Bozzzton has to be careful with expenditure of removal. How do you do it? How much damage can you take? When's the right time?
Wow. Did somebody order a bomb?
Well, I'm fairly interested in the Explodinator for Brawl.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. It does put more minions on board for Sea Giant, which is the downside, unless you go, obviously, on the same turn.
Yeah, the problem is that's 9 mana, and 9 mana strands one of your hero powers.
That's true as well.
6/5 survives, and that means the Shield Slam.
A lot of resources being used now for Bozzzton.
Indeed. That's a lot of stuff gone, and I think Kolento, having seen a Brawl, might smell this as the opportunity to push. So now, 2 Shield Slams gone?
Yes, both Shield Slams gone, a Super Collider gone, a Brawl gone.
I mean, Caligo's
Power of Creation.
No, this is insane.
Oh, you've just seen the Brawl. Let's go. Do you take the Counterspell?
I think the Counterspell is the take here.
A big turn?
The Archmage Counterspell.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
He may not need that, though. I mean, it's getting to a point where, like, Snap Freeze that's a real opportunity to secure a kill as well. I mean, you have Ray of Frost in hand.
I think I like this one the most.
Ah,
okay.
I like that as well.
This works too. Doesn't overdraw on the card either. Yeah, this all just looks lovely to me.
I think this is better than the Power Creation because Power Creation's good on its own. The Caligos by itself isn't threatening enough. The Conjurer's Calling is going to be tough for you to activate in the future, and you don't want to use it on Sea Giant, and you don't want to use it on Archmage. I mean, Caligos has now done its job. Turn it into 2 big things.
You do want to use it on Sea Giant, but I agree you would rather use it on the Caligos just to get the
It's tough to use it on Sea Giant.
Yes, yes.
Cost 10 mana.
For sure. And now, if he wants to start uploading a really powerful turn, like just another Conjurer's Call and then Counterspell on the following turn, maybe that's a bit of an overcommittal. He could just play Counterspell with this board and it would probably be fine.
Yeah, Bozton's in real trouble here.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
Obviously, again, all his mechs do have Rush, which really helps this situation. Being able to go for, I don't know, an Execute in combination with the Dynamatic and then following up with the Goblin.
That's not the pan out you want. Just everything there shaped up.
Yeah, that was the worst combination, I think.
Yowzers.
That feels pretty bad. Having her car die, though, as it looks like it probably will, whether just through removal or the Conjurer's Call, is pretty interesting. Having those Corrupted Bloods in the deck could hurt Kolento if he's in an otherwise unlosable position.
The situation I would see Kolento perhaps trying to create is Archmage's final threat, right? It's probably the biggest, baddest value engine that he's going to have.
You never lose.
Exactly. So he can actually keep 10 cards in hand for a certain duration of time with Archmage Antonidas and Ray of Frost.
Oh. That's
using Banana Buffoon. I mean, there's a lot of ways for him to just keep 10 cards in hand.
In order to overdraw the Corrupted Blood.
He bombed, then he Corrupted Blood.
Yeah. That's a good
Kolento
point.
says, you know what? Let's get some Corrupted Bloods rolling.
Ooh.
Big, bad Archmage.
We are very happy to see that as Kolento.
An additional 6-cost minion every turn.
Time runs out on me.
Oh, the counterspell as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just perfect, right? Even if the Brawl comes down, he needs something else first in order to get rid of that counterspell.
Oh, that's 2 for 2 now.
That's 2 for 2 on exactly
damaged Stegatron. All right, so for Bozzzton here, shield block, first order of business, second order of business, brawl, hope it works.
Yep. You are praying for that Banana Buffoon to just be swole as heck and beat all these other guys.
It's going to need a lot of potassium to win this one. There is one very disastrous outcome, and there's one very good outcome, and there's 2 pretty reasonable outcomes.
Well, let's see which one it will be. That's admirable.
Disaster.
That is the absolute disaster.
And Bozzzton,
Bozzzton, man.
clearly not happy about that situation.
And now Kolento, what does he need to be afraid of, right? He's seen both Brawls, both Shield Slams, a Super Collider. I think Warpath that he needs to be afraid of.
I think we have approached the Archmage Antonidas turn.
Okay, I could see that. I could definitely see
You have a prime target that needs to be executed, and then you make a second one that needs to be executed, and you get to cash in on 3 spells to generate.
I think
you could do more too. Like you could go the Sorcerer's Apprentice and just cash all the ones.
I just want to see Kolento go for the throat here, because the one way he loses, I think, is, again, a sequence of Freak Bombs. Or if Blastmaster Boom comes down for a little bit of damage to the face, he needs to close this out now that he's seen all the removal come down.
He's thinking through the steps.
And I think Power of Creation is potentially a little bit too vulnerable to Warpath off the top. So I love the Antonidas line as well. Let's just kill him as quick as possible.
Some say the future is thorium or nuclear power, but I encourage everyone to look into Archmage Antonidas for fueling everything. This is insane!
Yeah, this is absolutely disgusting. I don't think Bozzzton really has anything in his deck that could even clear this, to be perfectly honest. With both Brawls going down, obviously the Warpath doesn't
The heck?
get there. Okay.
How did you beat that?
Kolento's pretty good at Hearthstone.
Yeah! Granted, Big Bad Archmage won the brawl, but I think the Antonidas was a big enough of an Archmage, bad enough of an Archmage to get this done.
Does manage to clear off the board, but this damage coming through to face has to close things out.
You gotta live through 36 points of fireball damage. It just doesn't happen.
I kind of like that all the fireballs in the line look like one really long fireball. Just like one guy's getting really blasted. I'm sure that's what Kolento's thinking as well.
Again, though, still just that, that one freak opportunity of explosions being able to happen.
Yeah.
I think the 7 armor here might have discouraged Kolento from going for the fireball plan.
Yeah, just in case your opponent starts to pull back board, it's possible with
Because
all
you'd
the
have
rush.
35 over 2 turns. Maybe he should have gone for it, actually, because Bozzzton goes up to 30 health with the armor up, and then a shield block would take him to 35. And so you're looking at double fireball and ping. and then into double fireball. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's 28 damage.
Yeah,
Apologies.
Yeah. And also, if they get Ziliax magnetized onto a mech, it really starts to mess things up. So I think this is just the safer route. I like the Ken as well over the dragon there, just because you want as much front-loaded damage as possible before the death.
Yep. All right, Bozzzton. If you had one chance, and you can see it in his face, he's going, oh, like, really?
Boy, I'm about to do it.
Is he?
Can you imagine?
The 19 breakpoint. The 19 breakpoints here as well. So like,
there's one bomb in the. There's at least one bomb in the deck as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
pretty sure.
It's just funny to me that.
Yeah, there definitely is.
It's Kolento going to 16 yet again, so it has to be 4 bombs. Like, did he miss a damage this game?
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, if you look back, it almost certainly did, and it almost certainly will not matter. It's his out, right? Like there's nothing else in his deck. He has to just go for the freak bomb lethal hit.
I mean, are you going to win the long game here?
No, you never.
Of course not. That's silly. Oh. The maximum. Yes. Yes, indeed he is.
All right. Let's see if Bozzzton has got what it takes.
The expression from Bozzzton lets you know where he got to in this game. Oh, Corrupted Blood, so that kills the breakpoint now.
He only needs 3 bombs now.
There's first bomb.
1.
And that's the end of that. Kolento 2-0 over Bozzzton with 6 additional fireballs to spare. And so Mage looking dominant here in Europe as it is 4 games to 0 that Mage has won, and 2